You're not you until you meet your shadow. Do you ever feel like you're not living your life? That there's something dark inside you that you're afraid to admit? Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of us that we reject but that controls our actions from the subconscious. Imagine a man who always tries to be good, avoids conflict, and suppresses his true feelings. He wears a mask, which Jung called the persona, hiding his shadow, repressed desires, fears, and aggression. But the more he denies his shadow, the more it affects his life, manifesting itself in sudden outbursts of anger or depression. The shadow. It is the sum total of all those traits we deny in ourselves. It is formed from childhood when we are taught that getting angry is bad, or you can't be selfish. We hide these qualities, but they never go away. Persona. The mask we put on to conform to society's expectations. It helps us interact with the world, but if we identify only with it, we lose touch with our true self. Integration of the shadow. Jung argued that the path to wholeness is through recognizing and accepting one's shadow. This does not mean indulging your dark sides, but recognizing their existence and finding a constructive outlet for them. Accept your shadow and you will find true freedom. Subscribe to the channel to learn how integrating your shadow can change your life. Don't miss the chance to become a holistic and conscious person. You are not suffering because of love. You are suffering because of your attachment, which your mind has confused with love. And the deeper the illusion, the more painful it is to let go. But here's the truth that you can't hide from. What you're holding on to is gone. All that's left is a shadow. And the longer you cling to it, the more you lose yourself. You can't let go of a person because, in effect, you're letting go of a part of yourself. Not him, but the version of you that existed around him. And that's the main pain. Because when you let someone else go, it's like you're resetting your own identity. But here's the secret. You were never that person. It was a mask, an archetype you wore to fit expectations, roles, fears. Attachment isn't about love, it's about addiction. And addiction is a distorted need for someone outside to validate your worth. You're not holding on to love. You're holding on to the idea that you're nothing without him. And as long as you're in that, you're not free. In the depths of your unconscious, you keep replaying the same story. You need, you hope, you suffer. And that story doesn't end until you rewrite it, until you ask yourself the tough question, who am I if I'm not the one who loved him? Carl Jung said, what you resist persists. As long as you refuse to relive the pain, you prolong it. You want to avoid the emptiness, and that's what you're reinforcing. Pain is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It shows you where you have identified not with yourself, but with an illusion. The true self does not suffer. It's the ego that suffers. The ego that's afraid of disappearing. The ego that is used to seeing in the other are a reflection of its own value. But you are more than the ego, much more. To truly let go, you don't have to forget the person. You have to reclaim the energy you put into them. You think you miss the person. In reality, you miss yourself, who you were around him. But if you're honest, you'll see. You weren't you. You were a projection. You were a comfortable version of yourself. You were dependent on approval, on attention, on promises. That's not you. It's a defense mechanism. Jung called it the persona, the social mask we put on to receive love. But love received in exchange for betraying yourself is not love. It's a bargain, and you've paid too dearly for it. By giving up your true nature, you began to live someone else's life, and now that the person is gone, you are left with an emptiness. But that emptiness is not from him. It's because you've lost yourself. To heal, you have to get yourself back. Every time you think about him, bring your attention back inward. Ask, what don't I want to feel right now? That's where the most pain is, and that's where the key to freedom is hidden. Because pain is the entrance. It's not the end. It's a beginning. Attachment doesn't go away with time. Time doesn't heal anything. Time is an illusion. What heals is awareness. It's a direct look inward. It's the courage to see your own addiction without making excuses for it. It's the willingness to live the loneliness and not run away. Because loneliness is not a punishment. It's a space where you meet the real you. And where you are real, there is no fear of loss. Because you are whole. And if you're whole, you don't need. You choose. When you choose, you are free. When you are in need, you are trapped. Your mind will resist. It will say, you can't be without him. You will never find one again. You are alone. You are not needed. But it is not you. It's the voice of an inner child who was hurt once upon a time. That child is not looking for the love of an adult. It's looking for a parent. He's looking for security. But no partner can replace what was not given as a child. And as long as you're looking for a partner to make up for the trauma, you'll fall back into addictions over and over again. Jung said that we don't meet people by chance. We meet people who reflect our unconscious. Every person you were attached to was a mirror. He wasn't the one who hurt you. He activated the pain that was already living in you. You can't heal by blaming the mirror. You can only heal by looking within. When you realize this, you let go not because you need to let go, but because you are reclaiming your power. Attachment disappears when you stop feeding the illusion that someone else will give you what you don't give yourself. Love, acceptance, value, respect. All of these are not external gifts. It's an inner state. And when you return to it, you are no longer clinging. You are open, but not dependent. You love, but you don't lose yourself. You feel pain, but you don't run from it. Because you know pain is a process. It's not punishment. It's a cleansing. Through it, you grow. Through it, you remember who you are. Let go of the illusion. Face reality. Recognize that you are no longer the person you were in that relationship. And that's a good thing. It means you've grown. It means you've matured. There's a power inside of you that you don't even realize you have. Because while you were busy suffering over him, you didn't see yourself. You were busy holding on to the past, and you missed the moment, and the moment is all you have. When you come back to the now, you feel life. You are no longer in the mind. You are in the heart, and that's when everything changes. It's not a fast track. It's not a technique. It's a transformation. It's the death of an old version of you and the birth of a new one. That is true healing. It doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. And when it happens, you no longer ask the question, how do I let go? Because you are already free. You just are, and you're whole. And in that wholeness is the power of the world. You think time will heal everything, that one day you'll wake up and just stop feeling. But the truth is, time doesn't cure anything. It just gives you a space in which you keep going over and over in your head. Why did he leave? Why am I still thinking about her? Why can't I forget even though it's been so long? An emotional breakup isn't just pain, it's withdrawal. It's the feeling of being ripped out of your own life, leaving a gaping void, and you don't know who you are without that person. This is where the real journey begins, because letting go isn't about time. It's about realization. It's about stopping fighting reality and taking an honest look in the mirror for the first time. To recognize that you're not holding on to a person, you're holding on to an idea, a projection created by your mind. And until you break that illusion, you will not be free. You will not be free from pain, because pain lives not in what you have lost, but in what you keep holding on to. Our unconscious is tricky. It creates anchors, scraps of memories, smells, messages, pictures, phrases that hit you in the chest like bullets. And every time you see or hear something familiar, it's like you go back. Not back to the past, back to captivity. The key to liberation is not to forget, but to transform. To look at the relationship not as a failure, but as a lesson. Recognize that you are addicted and that it's not about love. It's about being out of touch with yourself. When you're out of touch with your own self-worth, you look for it in someone else. You cling to external validation, to attention, to being needed. Because if you are needed, you exist. That's the root of the pain. But the person who walks away, he doesn't take away your value. He just walks away. Everything else is in your head. You keep running scenarios, analyzing, trying to understand. It's a trap. The more you think, the deeper you sink, because you're trying to logically explain what you have to live. The first thing you have to do is stop. Break the loop. Stop looking outside for answers. And ask yourself one question. Who was I before this connection? Who did I become in it? And who can I be now? This moment is a breaking point, but it's also a point of beginnings. Yes, you have lost something, but in that empty space, something more can be born. Not a new person, not a new love, but you, the real you, without masks, without fear, without trying to fit in. Letting go doesn't start with forgetting. It starts with taking yourself back, one step at a time. First, removing everything that's holding you back. No sentimentality. It's not about cruelty, it's about freedom. Cleansing the outside is an act of self-respect. Delete photos, correspondence things. Remove triggers. Clear the space. Then turn your attention inward. Write, talk, create. Do whatever allows you to express emotion, because displaced pain doesn't go away, it hides. And it will manifest in new connections, in anxiety, in self-depreciation. Don't be afraid to live. Pain is not an enemy, it is a signpost. If it hurts, it means there is something that needs to be understood. The next step is to rethink. Ask yourself honestly, what was I looking for in this man? What did he give me that I don't have? The answer will be scary, but honest. You were looking for validation, love that you didn't give yourself, and that's where the real transformation begins. It's not about finding a new person. It's about becoming that person for yourself. It's not pretty words, it's work. Every day. Getting up when you don't feel like it. Taking a step when it seems pointless. Repeating to yourself, I'm not broken, I'm changing. Because letting go isn't the end. It's a transition from illusion to reality, from addiction to freedom, from the fear of being alone to the joy of being yourself. There will be setbacks in this process. There will be days when it hits you, when you want to text, call, come back. That's okay, but you're not the same person. You know there's no truth behind it. There's just a repetition of pain. And every time you choose not to react, you grow. Not instantly, not heroically, but little by little, imperceptibly, but deeply, through action, through discipline, through self-respect. And then one day you'll wake up and you'll feel silence. Not emptiness, but peace. This voice is not yours. This voice is not yours. It is the voice of fear. It is an echo of wounds from childhood, from past experiences, from situations where you were rejected and decided you weren't worthy of love without pain. To let go is to begin to question those voices. It is to choose truth over habit. The truth is that no one can be your salvation. No matter what was going on in the relationship, you were always the source, a source of warmth, of attention, of love. You think the other person was giving it to you, but he was only reflecting what was already in you. That is why you are suffering, not because of the loss of the person, but because of the loss of access to the part of yourself that you activated through him. Get it back. Don't wait for someone else to reactivate it. Activate it yourself. Become the person you lost. It sounds metaphorical, but it's a concrete process. Take care of the body. Take care of your space. Take care of your thinking. Replace your complaining thoughts with practicing thoughts. You don't have time for self-pity. You only have a path forward. And that path begins with clarity, with the admission, yes, I am hurt. Yes, I'm attached. Yes, I don't know how to live without it. And at the same time, I'm willing to learn. I'm ready to walk through this. I'm ready to be me. Resistance makes the pain eternal. Acceptance makes it transformative. Start simple. Write the letter you won't send. Describe everything you haven't said. All your feelings, your fears, your anger, your gratitude. And at the end, write, I'm letting go. I choose me. Then burn the letter or tear it up. It's not magic, it's a symbol. And symbols work on the unconscious. Next, start forming new meanings. Who are you without this connection? What do you want to create in your life? What version of yourself do you want to wake up in a year? These questions are fundamental because without new meaning, you will always fall back into the old. It's easier for a person to suffer for the past than to build an unknown future. But maturity is about choosing the difficulty of growth over the comfort of degradation. And yes, it will be scary, but fear is not a stop signal. It's a pay attention signal. Fear is the companion of all big changes. Embrace it. Don't hide. Don't fill the void with soap operas, social media, escapism into work. The void is sacred. It's where you'll find the real you. Listen, what do you feel? Where is the pain in your body? Where is the tightness? Where is the anxiety? Work with that through breathing, through bodywork therapy, through mindfulness practices. None of these are fancy words. They're tools for getting back to yourself. And remember, you're not alone. Millions of people go through this every day. That doesn't make your pain any less meaningful. It makes it part of the overall human journey. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to be the hero of your story. And a hero isn't someone who doesn't fall. It's someone who gets up again and again. Even if there's a whisper inside, I can't take it anymore. Even if it feels like giving up. In these moments, especially, move. Small steps, a glass of water, a walk, writing, a meditation, one honest conversation, one rejection of the things that are destroying you. All of these are the building blocks of a new life. You don't build instantly, but you do. And one day you'll look back and see that you didn't just let someone go. You've become someone who can't be lost. You. You have become yourself. That is the end of attachment. Not because you don't care, but because now you are filled. From this state, you will no longer cling. You will not ask to be rescued. You'll meet people out of abundance, not scarcity, and that changes everything. Imagine a relationship without dependency, no fear of abandonment, no trying to prove your worth. Just you, the real you, the whole you, and another person you choose, not need. But to get there, you have to go through emptiness, through rethinking, through letting go of old stories. You may feel like you're nothing without that person, but it's not you. It's the voice of an old trauma where love was equal to pain, where attention had to be earned, where you were taught that you were only worthy if an outside voice told you so. And now that that outside voice is gone, what's left is silence. But silence is not the enemy. In the silence, your new story is born, not the story of how you were left behind, but how you chose yourself. Look inside. What beliefs have driven you in this relationship? I'm not good enough. I have to save. I have to earn love. They are all programs. They can be rewritten, not quickly, not in one evening. But you can. You can choose a new mindset every day. Instead of, why did he leave? What can I create today? Instead of, no one needs me anymore. I'm learning to be needed. This is not about positive thinking. It's about what can I create today? Instead of, no one needs me anymore, I'm learning to be needed. This isn't about positive thinking. It's about mature thinking. It's about choosing to grow. And it works, because reality always responds to your state of being. The more you stay in the victim role, the more scenarios that confirm your powerlessness. The more you realize your power, the more freedom comes. It's not metaphysics, it's psychology. The world doesn't have to be fair, but you do have to be honest with yourself. Admit it. You're not letting go because you believe you can't do without that person. But that's a lie. You've dealt with much worse. You've been through pain you haven't told anyone about. You've gotten up off your knees when everyone wrote you off. So you can do it now, not all at once, one step at a time. First, get your body back. Breathe, feel, sleep, eat, walk. Then get my voice back. To write, speaking, making choices. Then to regain my eyes. To look at the world again, not through the lens of loss, but as an opportunity. It's all about recovery. Not because you're broken. It's because you haven't been yourself for too long, and now it's time to get back. This is when the real transformation begins. You stop blaming. You stop looking for someone to blame. You stop hoping for a comeback, and instead you ask yourself, who am I if I let go? If I don't cling anymore? If I start from scratch? It's a scary question, because the answer is unknown. But that's precisely its power. When you allow yourself to be empty, you have a chance to be anything you want to be. Not who you were made to be, not who you were in a relationship, but who you choose to be. And it doesn't come from disappointment, it comes from growing up. It happens. You wake up one day and realize you're not waiting anymore. Not because the pain is gone, it's because you don't let it control you anymore. That's freedom. It doesn't come suddenly. It comes after hundreds of inner choices to stay with yourself, even if it's lonely, to go on, even if tired, to tell the truth, even if it's scary, to open up again, even if betrayed, not to get trapped again, but to live without fear. You won't be the same, and that's a good thing. The old you didn't know your power. The new you recognizes it every day. Reminds yourself, I am not my losses. I am not my fears. I am not my projections. I am not my addiction to love. You are the source. You are the beginning. Your heart is not a prison, but a home. And if someone didn't stay, it was a guest, not the host. You are the chiach. You cannot build the new if you keep holding on to the old. Any attempt to hold on to what is gone is an abandonment of life. And that's what creates suffering. Suffering not because of loss, but because of resistance to loss. We believe that if we let go, we'll find ourselves in a void. But the truth is, you're already in it. And that's not a bad thing. The void is the beginning. It's where everything real comes from. You don't have to fill it with someone. You have to let yourself be in it, to hear yourself. Everything you're afraid to feel is already inside. All those emotions you repress, longing, anger, shame, resentment, they won't go away until you give them space. Not outside, not in another person, but inside. Allow yourself to live them out. It's an act of strength, because living out feelings is not weakness, it's maturity. Every time you don't run away from the pain, you reconnect with yourself. And the deeper you go, the clearer it becomes. You suffered not from love, but from addiction. Not from loss, but from the illusion of control. Not from a person, but from an image you have created of yourself. It is the image that we fear to lose. Not the real person, but who we've become around them. And here's the truth. If you needed that image, it means you didn't know your essence yet. Because essence doesn't require proof. It doesn't depend on the presence of another. It doesn't need approval. It is simply there. And when you come back to it, everything changes. The anxiety goes away. Gone is the compulsion to check, to remember, to fantasize. You become whole. And that's when love stops being an addiction. It becomes a choice. But to do that, you have to go through one of the hardest steps, recognition. Admitting that you've been creating an illusion, that you weren't living with a person, but with a fantasy, that you were trying to heal an old wound with someone else's hands. It hurts. It shatters the narcissistic defenses. But that's where mature love begins, because only a mature person is capable of being in a relationship without losing themselves. You don't have to forget. You don't have to let go by force. You just have to move forward. Every step forward moves you further away from the illusion. Not because you're erasing the memory. It's because you're different. And you see differently. You don't idealize anymore. You see things as toast. And when you're whole, that's when a different kind of love comes. Not the kind that's based on scarcity, but one that is born out of wholeness. It's a love union, not a love of need. But until then, one task, to be with yourself, learning to be, not in the sense of enjoying solitude, but in the sense of not being afraid of silence, not to seek urgent compensation, not to run off into new connections just to avoid feeling. The hardest thing is not to fill the void artificially. It's to stand in it. This is the moment of growth. This is where you build a new foundation, not on pain, not on fear, but on knowing yourself. And then even if love comes, you won't lose yourself in it, because you already are. And that's what matters. You won't cling anymore. You won't grab for crumbs of attention. You won't put up with toxicity. You won't live in expectation because you chose to be alive, not addicted. Everything you're going through right now is a journey, sometimes messy, sometimes pointless, sometimes terribly painful, but it's all a journey home, home to yourself. When you stop chasing the return of the past, you finally start building the present. Pain doesn't go away overnight. It lets go when you stop fighting it. Acceptance is not surrender. It is an act of profound strength. You no longer need illusions. You stop lying to yourself. You stop looking for validation of your worth in other people's eyes. It's difficult, especially if you've been programmed your whole life to earn love. You're used to being needed, useful, convenient. You believe that was the only way you could be accepted. But that's a lie. True love doesn't need proof. It is not built on rescue, dependence, anxiety. It doesn't require you to change yourself beyond recognition. And this is where the real healing begins. You gradually reclaim the right to be yourself, without fear, without role, without expectation. You begin to breathe. And that process is scary, because you've been living the wrong life for a long time. You've been trying to fit in, to be enough. And now that it's all falling apart, it feels like you're losing ground. But really, you're just now finding it, because truth is not what you've been told. Truth is what you feel when you become honest with yourself. And in that honesty, a new quality of life is born. Without tension, without constant anxiety, no fear of being left behind, because you are no longer abandoning yourself. You're no longer betraying yourself to be with someone. You don't make compromises that destroy your essence. That's not selfishness. That's maturity. It's an inner discipline to be with yourself despite the temptation to go back to the old. Because the old is familiar but destructive, and the new is scary but freeing. Your job is to endure this transition. Don't succumb to the familiar pain. Don't confuse it with love. Love doesn't tear you apart. It doesn't make you doubt yourself. Doesn't make you feel guilty about other people's projections. Everything you are going through right now is a journey of separation. You are separating not from the person, but from the false part of yourself that lived for them. It's a painful break, but it's necessary. Without it, there is no growing up. Without it, you fall back into the same trap of seeking validation through another. Liberation begins with giving up this game. You are no longer playing catch-up. You don't try to earn it. You don't wait. You choose yourself. Every single day, in the simple decisions, in silence, in letting go of old scripts. It's like practicing. You relearn how to walk. You learn to be. You learn to hear yourself. You begin to distinguish between what is true and what is a projection. Where is love and where is need? Where there's connection and where there's symbiosis. And you feel more and more. You don't need so much to be happy. You don't need recognition, likes, constant validation. You need to be at peace with yourself. And when you choose to do that, the world starts to change. Not immediately, not magically, but gradually. You're attracted to other things. You see differently. You no longer cling to the unattainable. You don't suffer because someone didn't choose you, because you've already chosen yourself. And you know you don't have to be anyone's project. You don't have to prove to anyone that you're worthy of love. You're just worthy. In fact, no strings attached, no struggle, no drama. You are no longer living in survival mode. You start living in presence mode. You stop scanning faces for approval. You no longer wait for a call, a text, a signal. You're not dependent. You are free. That doesn't mean you're not in pain. It means you know how to be with that pain without collapsing. It used to be that any shadow and you'd fall into the abyss. Now you learn to pass through the shadows because you realize that darkness is part of the path. This is not an enemy. It is an invitation to awareness. Mindfulness begins with an admission. Yes, I am hurting. Yes, I miss you. Yes, I am angry. But I am no longer running away from these feelings. I am with them. I breathe them. I stay. This is maturity. That's courage. Because running away is easy. Shutting down, pretending, finding a replacement is easy. Opening up is hard. Being vulnerable is scary. But that's where true strength is born. Because when you open up to yourself, you open up to life, and you stop living someone else's desires. You stop following other people's scripts. You finally ask yourself the question, what do I want? Not what's expected of me, not how to be comfortable, and what truly resonates with my soul. It's a fracture, inner, deep, invisible to others, but it's the point of no return. You can't go back to the old you, even if you tried, even if it backfires. You already know the taste of freedom, and it's getting more familiar every day. You don't idealize anymore. You're sober. You see who's there and who's not, who's with you for substance and who's with you out of habit. You don't save anymore. You don't carry. You don't take on other people's pain. You distinguish between your responsibility and someone else's. You learn to let go, not out of indifference, but out of love. Because love is not a chain. Love is a space in which both are free. And if one leaves, you don't collapse. You don't lose yourself. Because you are no longer dissolved in the other. You are whole. And yes, the journey to that wholeness is a long one. It's full of doubt, pain, setbacks. But it's worth it. Because you get yourself back, piece by piece, tear by tear. You remember who you were before the trauma, before the betrayal, before the addiction, and you learn to be that you, without the mask, without fear, without need. And that's when you find the silence, deep, calm. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand. It's just there. And it's your new support, not a person, not status, not opinion. It's you, inside. There's nothing like it. You don't become mature when you're in control. It's when you can be with yourself in the chaos and not collapse. You begin to see not everyone who leaves betrays. Sometimes it's freeing. Sometimes it shows you where you've been holding on to an illusion, and you give thanks. For real. No sarcasm, no bitterness. Because you realize that if things had turned out differently, you would never have awakened. You'd still be in character, hiding, silent, waiting. And now you're living. And you don't give up on yourself anymore. Not for love, not for acceptance, or for comfort. Because you know that everything you need is already inside. You just haven't looked there in a long time. You stop explaining yourself to those who don't want to understand. You stop knocking on closed doors. You're no longer begging to be heard, to be accepted, to be noticed. Because you choose yourself, not because you become proud, but because you become whole. And you notice the less you cling, the easier the energy flows. The less tension, expectations, claims. You become pure flow. You give yourself permission to be. Not to correct, not to prove, not to conform. Just be. It takes away tons of internal pressure. And you suddenly realize how many years you've lived trying to earn love, respect, support, you've strategized, you've adjusted, you were adapting, you were getting comfortable, and you were getting tired, and now you're choosing differently. Not to be comfortable, but to be real. And that doesn't mean conflict. It means living in harmony with yourself. Even if someone doesn't like it, even if someone leaves, even if you're alone. Because being alone with yourself is not an emptiness. It's a space where strength is born. Yours. It's real. And when you stand on that inner support, you look at relationships differently. You're no longer looking for a savior. You don't want to dissolve. You want to meet. For real. With an open heart. No games, no manipulation, no fear of abandonment. Because even if you get dumped, you're still with you. It's not about coldness. It's about maturity. When you're not out of lack, but out of fullness. When you're not out of fear, but out of love. That's a whole other level. And yes, not everyone is ready to go there. Not everybody wants to go there. Some people find it easier to play roles, to pretend, keeping quiet. But that's not your way. You choose clarity. And if someone leaves, you don't hold on. You don't fight. You don't retaliate. You let go. With gratitude. With respect. Because every man is a teacher. Even if he came to break your heart, he awakened you. He showed you where you're still holding on to the illusion. Where you are not yet whole. Where you are not yet with yourself. And you give thanks. And you move on. Without pain. Without resentment. With understanding. That's maturity. That's love. Not for others, for yourself. And
This is only the first part. We realized that all the depth cannot be contained in one video, so we decided not to sacrifice the important for the sake of time. We'll continue in the next video. There's a second half of the journey waiting for you. Don't stop now. If you've gotten to this point, it means something inside is already changing. Take a step further. Continue your awakening. Go to the next video.